This is 4.7b as in boy, square roots and the Pythagorean theorem, continuation of the square roots. And one of the geometry facts that maybe you've learned that don't remember, or maybe you remember it quite fine, is if you have a triangle, and one of the angles in that triangle is a 90-degree angle, and I have that side and that side, we'll call them A, B, and we'll call the hypotenuse, which is always the longest side of a triangle, and it's always labeled as C. And if I want to, I can find any of the lengths of those triangles, of that triangle. I can find the length of A, the length of B, or the length of C, as long as I know the other two. So there's a formula called the Pythagorean theorem that is written. It says A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And a variation of that is what we have in the purple box right above example 10. And that formula is, again, a variation. It's the exact same formula. It's just written a little bit different. And it looks like that. So I can find the hypotenuse of any angle that's right, like that one, if I know A and B. So for example, in example 10, they're giving me a triangle that looks like this. They're telling me that's C, they're saying that's 4, and they're telling me that's 3. So if I take C equals the square root of, now which one's A and which one's B? It doesn't matter. So 4 squared, we'll call that one our A, and our B is 3. So C equals square root of 16 plus 9. C equals square root of 25. Square root of 25 equals 5. So this is going to be equal to 5. So notice this is our answer from example 10. We had 3, we had 4, and our hypotenuse is 5. Okay, so we were able to find the hypotenuse given these two when this was a right triangle. Now, this is some real life stuff. Let's say that you're trying to build a garage, and you want the garage to be rectangular, meaning you want all of these angles to be right angles, like that, so that everything's square. Well, one of the ways that contractors go about making sure that is square is they'll take their tape measure and they'll put it here, and they'll go 3 feet over. And they'll put their tape measure here and measure that up 4 feet. And then they'll take their tape measure and measure that. And if this is 5 feet, then they know that this corner is square. If it's not 5 feet, then that corner is not square, and they may have to make some adjustments. So let's say, for example, you're trying to find out if your corner is square, and you put in a stake here, and you measure it 3 feet. So you know that's 3 feet. And you put in another stake up here, and you measure, and it's 4 feet. And then you take your tape measure and you measure this, and maybe this is 7 feet. Well, you know that this angle then, right here, is not square. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to take this stake and move it up a little bit here and measure 3. And then you're going to measure from here to here. And lo and behold, now when you measure, that's 5. Therefore, you know that your garage, this line right here and this line right here, are at 90-degree angles. They're square because of the 3, 4, 5 rule. So that will always work, and that's kind of a nice, easy way in order to make sure your corners are square. They're 90 degrees when you're building anything. So let's look at example 11. We've got this house, and there's our ground, and let's just say that this is our house there. And we've got a ladder that's leaning against the house. We'll put that in blue. Leaning against the house. And let's see, what do we know? It's 6 feet high, so it's leaning against the house, and this distance right here is 6 feet from where the ladder hits the house to the ground. What else do we know? If the bottom of the ladder is 8 feet from the wall, what if we want to know how long this ladder is? Okay, we can call it X, we can call it C, we can call it anything we want. Let's go ahead and call it C because that's what we call hypotenuses. So we know that C then, according to our formula, equals the square root of one of the sides squared plus the other side squared. So C equals the square root of 64. Notice when you've got numbers inside the radical sign, you can add those. You just ignore that there's a radical sign there. So 64 plus 36 is 100. What number times itself gives me 100? In this case, it's 10. So I know my ladder is 10 feet long. That is one of the methods. If I don't know if you've ever thought about it, but how do they determine how high a mountain is when they can't take a tape measure from the middle of the mountain and measure up? How do they figure that out? Well, they use triangles like this. They measure, and this is where you get into some trigonometry, but just there's a formula you use with this angle, and if you know how far it is from here to here, then you can figure out how tall the mountain is. So they use these triangles in trigonometry in order to figure all that out. All right, so that is lesson 4.7.